Hello, everybody. Mr. Viteri here. Unit 7, Day 4. Hope you're okay. Hope everything is all right in your house. So let's get right to it. So we're talking about air pollution, and one category of air pollution is indoor air pollutants. Now, this would be pollutants that are typically indoors as opposed to outdoors. So there are particular ones that are more common indoors than outdoors. Like I said yesterday, air inside is always mostly we could say 99% of the time, more dirty than, let's say, outside air. And so opening the windows does allow, fresh air in the house. However, if it is allergy season or if it is, a heavy pollen day, you may want to close the windows. So you have to take that with a grain of salt. Anyway, what are the certain air pollutants that we're really talking about when we're talking about indoor air pollutants? So once again, this is going to be like a laundry list, so having an index card may help you do this. All right. I also want to mention or think about this, an airplane, and particularly during travel nowadays, particularly because of the pandemic. An airplane, does an airplane just open the window and allow air inside or fresh air inside the airplane? No, it doesn't, not necessarily. Rather, it recycles the air that is in the cabin. And the reason it does that is because it's pressurized. The cabin is pressurized. As a plane goes higher in elevation, there's going to be less pressure, less air pressure. You're going to get more air pressure closer to the troposphere. We talked about that in regards to gravity, gravity being more at the surface of the Earth as you basically get further away from the Earth. There's a less force of gravity. So that's why there's less oxygen concentration as you go up Mount Everest and so on and so forth. So imagine you're really high in the atmosphere. You can't just open a window, the oxygen content would be different. And so rather, an airplane recycles that indoor um, air that's in the cabin. And so let's say if someone was infected with COVID and they start coughing, the danger is that as that air gets recycled and put back into the airplane, then more people will be exposed to it. So that is just an interesting fun fact to try to put this all together. So indoor pollutants are much more concentrated than outdoor pollutants with regards to air pollution. Okay, let's pay particular attention to asbestos, mold, which is a type of fungi, and mold is going to grow anywhere there is something that mold can grow. So it eats something, and this is typically going to be it could be drywall, it could be wood, it could be I've seen mold grow on so many different things. I've even seen mold grow on that new type of material that's not really wood, but you put it outside. It's the four-letter word Trex. Trex decks could have mold. A lot of things grow mold. It's a decomposer. So whenever you have something that's decomposed and moisture, mold can grow on it. My boat always has mold on it, and we have to constantly battle with it, trying to keep it dry. Your air conditioning units inside your house are common areas of where mold can grow. Inside the unit, directly outside the unit, sometimes there's a condensation. And wherever there's condensation, where there's water, you could start to get some mold. All right. That mold could get blown around your house. Some molds are even fatal to certain people in the populations. Some people just get allergies from that mold. So mold is going to be one of those indoor air pollutants. Bacteria, so we got these little germs, and we could bring them inside the house. You know what? Like, I always get grossed out, or I have this idea, multi-million dollar idea. We have hospitals, and hospitals have some hospitals have filtration where they take in the air, they have an intake, and then they clean the air by by like these special bulbs, usually some type of radiation, like ultraviolet radiation, and it sterilizes the air and then recycles that air back into the hospital. Um, and that's cool because it's cleaning the air. But some hospitals don't. Sometimes they don't work as well. I think we should have like a 7 year change to hospital location plan. And the logic behind that is, if you go to the hospital, there's a lot of sick people in the hospital. Okay, and of course the hospital is going to be cleaned, but sometimes after year after year after year, stuff is not new anymore. And so perhaps moving to another hospital or having a 7-year plan and leaving one vacant, this will give time for that one hospital, all the germs that no longer have hosts to basically reproduce. And now we could basically have a new hospital. And then we could switch back and forth. I actually think that's a great idea. I think it's a great idea for schools as well. Because, when you go to a school, you have a lot of kids, a lot of, a great deal of the population. Man, we can use this idea in everything, right? We can use it for airports or whatever, wherever there's a high concentration of people. That idea came when I was raising chickens, and I knew that chickens are going to constantly poop in a given area, and my backyard is going to start getting disgusting, especially the longer I leave them alive. So my plan was a 3-month plan with my chickens, but if I left them year after year after year, you have to think about there's going to be more and more poop. Even if you clean it, there's going to be more and more residues after you've gotten that, and the germs can build up year after year after year. And so farmers typically, sometimes they actually let the land rest. Okay, they let the land rest, and this will give time for the parasites to die out, the germs to die out, and so on and so forth. All right. So anyway, that's some bacteria. We've talked a lot about VOCs. We're going to talk about some examples of them, like formaldehyde, new carpet, new furniture. I remember when we got our first baby, Angelica, we wanted to go top of the line everything, and we got this special furniture made from a place up Route 4, Route 17. I don't even remember the name, but you saw models in the store, and then you pick it, and then they make it for you. And so anyhow, we were waiting for our delivery of our crib, and when it came, it just smelt. It smelt like the stain that was used for it was still new. And so, that's not healthy for a pregnant woman. So we kind of like isolated it in a room, had to open up a window, and we didn't even use it for the first year. And we haven't used that until like the second or third year. It turned out to be a really bad purchase. It was all brand new wood. It was all brand new, custom made and everything like this. But as that wood started to dry, it warped, and now the drawers don't even fit right. We still have it, but it's kind of ghetto rigged in the house. Not the crib, but we bought the armoire and we bought the dresser as well. So anytime you buy like a new product, like a carpet, or a new product like new furniture, and it has that paint on it and the dyes, the newer products usually have to pay for an upcharge, are going to say no VOCs. However, older products are going to contain VOCs, and that's something that could potentially hurt your health, right? Radon is something that we're going to talk about. We got its own slide. So radon is a gas that is the second leading cause of lung cancer. Do you guys know what the first is? Smoking cigarettes. Okay, definitely know that. Important information to know. And then finally, carbon monoxide. All right, carbon monoxide, which we talked about already. And so let's look at this image right here. So it says more pollution indoors than outdoors, 2 to 5 times as worst. It says 90% of our lives are spent indoors. That's something to think about. All right. We have airborne particles like diesel exhaust, dust, smoke, and other sources. Indoor formaldehyde, that's going to come from furniture, carpets, and things like that. We have household odors like painting and cooking and smoking. Okay, ozone, which we've talked about before, like tropospheric ozone, carbon dioxide, which is going to come from combustion. Understand that it also comes from regular respiration, exhalation. Okay, and those are some of your indoor air pollutants. Now, let's go over some asbestos once again. Every time I look at that word, I want to pronounce it differently. Asbestos. I think I'm saying with a P, but it is a B. And it is a mineral that was used previously to the 70s. All right, most of us have it in our homes because most of the homes in Woodbridge Township are either built in 1950s, unless you got a newer home, something to think about. Anyway, where is this stuff? It could be in the tiles that you have. It could be in the paint that you have. Also, the outdoor siding that you have as well. The best thing to do with it is leave it, if it's perfect, leave it undisturbed. If you start messing with it and it starts turning to the dust form, then that's when it becomes dangerous. All right. It causes a particular type of lung cancer called mesothelioma. Okay. And the size of those particles, they vary. They can be from 0.25 all the way up to 10 micrometers. But the ones that are dangerous are going to be 2.5 and below, because those are small enough to get lodged deep into the lung tissue and then cause that cancer. All right. So what can you do? How can you test your area if it does have asbestos? I'm clicking on this link here. Let's see if it works. And I don't know if you're actually sharing my screen here. That would be cool if you are. You're probably not. But if you clicked on that link over there, what you would be noticing is Lowe's has like a kit. And that kit you can send out to a lab and you can see if your house has asbestos or not. Something that you may not want to do depending on your situation. It costs like $40. You send the test out and then they'll mail your responses back. If you've gone to Home Depot or Lowe's, you've probably seen these test kits. There's one for your water, there's one for lead, there's one for asbestos as well. All right, there's even one for radon, which we're going to talk about, I believe, next. Okay, so what is radon? When I first learned about radon, I had no idea it existed, and then when I knew it existed, I didn't think it existed in New Jersey. Then I didn't know it didn't exist in Middlesex County, and this is a thing. All right. So radon is a gas that is made from the decomposition of uranium. But uranium, yes, uranium is in our soil. Okay. When I say our soil, it's as close as New Jersey. Because I know I went to a friend's house and I saw this weird thing in their basement. I'm just like, what is that weird thing? It looked like a chimney, but it wasn't attached to a fireplace. It was just attached to a tube coming from the ground that led all the way up outside their house. Anyhow, let's get to it. So uranium in the ground, it's reactive and it will break down into radon. I know what you're thinking. Uranium is an element. Is it stable? It's not stable. That's why it's turning into other things. So as it becomes stabilized, as it reacts with its environment, it is going to produce this gas called radon gas. Now, if your house, let's look at this image down here. If your house has a significant amount of uranium underneath it, then if you have cracks in your foundation, and that's going to be that cement block that's on the bottom of your house, some of that radon could enter your house. And when that radon gets in such concentrations, it's colorless, it's odorless, so you don't even know it's there. It causes lung cancer. How crazy is this? That radon, okay, you could never smoke a cigarette in your life, but if your house has radon and you get lung cancer because of that, that is crazy when you think about that, okay? And so radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer. All right, so how can you properly get rid of radon? And so remember how I was talking about that chimney. So you can test your house for radon, and that's another test kit that you can go to Home Depot and get. And you basically cap the cracked foundation, and you're going to give it a specialized exhaust. When I went to that friend's house, it was a huge yellow tube. Um, maybe it's code to have it yellow going all the way out your house. And sometimes when you're looking at a house and you see like a yellow chimney, that's going to be that radon exhaust pipe. And you can live in the house. It's fine. Just get your radon tested, and you're going to be okay if you get those adaptations made for the radon itself. All right. So radon, second lead cause of lung cancer. What's the first one? Cigarette smoke. Like we spoke before, we spoke about carbon monoxide poisoning. Okay. And there is if you look it up, right in Woodbridge Township, there was a boy killed because of carbon monoxide. So carbon monoxide is going to come from burning any fossil fuels indoors. It's the chemical formula is CO. Okay. It is odorless, colorless, and you don't even know that you're inhaling it quite so often. It has a more affinity towards your red blood cells than oxygen does. So if you had a choice between oxygen, and you don't have a choice, you're just inhaling, your body just does what it's going to do in regards to inhalation. Because it's colorless and odorless, you may not know that you're now no longer absorbing the oxygen, you're absorbing the carbon monoxide. You get nauseated, you feel a little sick, and then you pass out. And you die of what's called asphyxiation. It's a fancy word for saying suffocation. So you want to make sure that your house has a carbon monoxide detector. Make sure that your exhausts from your stove, from your boiler, from your hot water heater, all these things are properly leaving through exhaust in your house, either through the roof or through the sides. All right. Okay, so that's carbon monoxide in a nutshell. Let's continue. VOCs, volatile organic compounds, or if you smell it, it's probably dangerous. Okay, they're moving towards a lot of chemicals that, like, I know when I went to the Home Depot and Lowe's, because we just painted the basement recently, I was buying paint, and all the newer paint, I guess the more expensive paint, it says no VOCs on it, and I know what a VOC is. It's a volatile organic compounds. I have children in the house, so I want to make sure my house is as safe as possible, and so I will buy non-VOC paint. Okay, so this is a category, right? Being a category, I can't just tell you, oh, it's H2 blah 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 C3 blah, blah, blah. This is a category, all right? This means that it's basically any toxin that you can inhale. Okay, some common ones that we're going to talk about is like that gasoline smell, the diesel smell, the spray paint. I mean, when you are smelling gasoline, basically you're smelling a hydrocarbon, and we could throw that into the form of a VOC. A hydrocarbon is a VOC. You're smelling gasoline. You're smelling small particles of gasoline, so it's pretty much like you are ingesting gasoline. Diesel will be the same way. Spray paint, markers, formaldehyde, all those things can cause human health effects. So let's try to also remember what are certain things that can happen. So it can aggravate asthma. Your eyes can get itchy. You can get a headache. All right, it's good to know a couple of symptoms that are associated with all air pollutants, and usually asthma is going to be one of those that is always on that rubric. I like this one too. You can go asthma, and then you could say respiratory illness. That's a huge category as well. And if it's like a point thing on your rubric, you could get a point for asthma, and typically there's a point for respiratory illness as well, because respiratory illness is a huge category. All right, tricks of the trade. More on smog. We talked about this tremendously yesterday, so let's try to get in it as well. Okay, so photochemical smog is going to be caused by nitrogen oxides plus VOCs plus sunlight, and then it's going to cause this. And notice the name, photochemical smog. It needs the sun in order to happen. Okay, San Francisco, California is famous for this. And this is how this thing is going to exist. All right. Let me pause this camera really quick. We're going to continue here. And I just wanted to add a slide. So I added a slide. And here's that slide. So it kind of relates to photochemical smog. It also relates to time of day, and particularly the two culprits that are involved. Like we talked about nitrogen oxides and VOCs making photochemical smog, but ozone is another component, being a secondary pollutant caused during the formation of photochemical smog. I feel like it's not clean, my explanation of that, but just understand that these two processes, ozone formation, tropospheric ozone formation, is happened simultaneously during photochemical smog as well. And when photochemical smog is occurring, all the time ozone is also being made. Okay, so nitrogen oxides plus VOCs, that's where the VOCs is typically getting the oxygen molecule and the atmosphere. And the sunlight is helping generate all this at the same time. But anyhow, I copied and pasted this this paragraph here from the CED, and let's read it through. Nitrogen oxide is produced early in the day. Ozone concentrations peak in the afternoon and are higher in the summer because ozone is produced by chemical reactions between oxygen and sunlight. So let's look at this image really quick. We have NO, NO2, and we have NOx. Notice in all situations, the NO, this is occurring, let's say, and this is 24 hours. So this would be like at 6 in the morning or sunrise. You're going to have higher concentrations of NOx, NO, NO2. And then later in the day, and it gets the hottest it's going to get in the whole day, typically at 12 or let's say from 12 to 2. And that's going to be roughly where there's going to be the most ozone concentration. And so understand that nitrogen oxides peak in the morning, perhaps when sunrise, but the sun's power is not as strong as, if you will, as it is later in the day during ozone formation. All right, let's continue. All right. Let's spend some good amount of time on acid deposition. So if you're tired of my lecture, I think you should pause, take a break, and come back. All right. So let's really talk about acid deposition. I think it's very important. I was looking at the CED once again, and I see a lot is given for acid deposition. Okay. So acid deposition is a term used to describe either acid rain or acid fallout. It could be acid snow. Anything that deposits, all right, from the atmosphere onto the ground is going to be known as acid deposition. So it could be snow, it could be rain, it could be just fallout. Okay. Now, typical rain it has a pH that is slightly acidic, but it's not considered acid rain until it falls below 5.6. Reason being is that H2O and CO2 makes carbonic acid. So typically rain is going to get or be slightly acidic. Right? Now, when it gets more acidic than 5.6, it is considered acid rain, acid deposition. Okay? Now, why would it fall below 5.6? Well, if there are emissions, particularly fossil fuel emissions like coal be the dirtiest, but diesel could do this as well. Diesel has sulfur in it, diesel fuel, but coal has even more. When there is a combustion of sulfur in the atmosphere, sulfur dioxide plus H2O is going to make sulfuric acid, and that can come down and cause some damage. All right, let's continue here. Well, let's look at that image before we leave. So here's a power plant. Here are some trucks burning diesel fuel. As they create those emissions, it's going to mix with water vapor, and it's going to come down. It could come down as snow, and as that snow melts, it's going to go through the river and eventually into a waterway. So that river is being affected by that acid deposition, as well as the trees are going to be affected by that acid deposition as well. And so if it becomes too acidic, you might go below the threshold of where these fish can live, or the threshold of what trees can live as well. If you look at the CED states that particularly if you are downwind from, let's say, a power plant, a coal-burning power plant, that's the areas that are going to be mostly affected by acid deposition. So imagine if you had a forest or a city or lake right next to a power plant. That area is going to be affected the most because the emissions there are going to be highly concentrated in comparison to areas that don't, with the sulfur, with the nitrogen oxides. And then that could come down and cause its damage. Now, another interesting fact that you need to understand is that the whole United States is different. All the soils could be particularly different as well. There are regional differences in the rocks that are in the ground. These regional differences have an ability to resist acid deposition or not resist it and therefore suffer its detrimental effects. Now, what area can make it more resistant towards acid deposition? So regional differences or places that have, get this in your mind, limestone bedrock or a concentration of limestone in their soils can resist the changes in pH that would be brought upon by acid deposition. So I have a picture over here. And down here is the limestone bedrock. Here's that soil. That limestone. So when it rains, and let's say it's raining acid rain on here, as that acid rain percolates through the ground, it's going to start hitting this limestone, and limestone is like an Alka-Seltzer. It's going to neutralize. So let's say 5.2 is coming down. As soon as it hits the limestone, it's going to bring its pH back up to 7, and so it will be neutralized. Okay, this makes sort of sense because some areas are devastated by acid deposition and some other areas are not necessarily affected by acid deposition. All right, so regional differences could attribute to how devastating the effects of acid deposition are. Okay, in this image, you're going to see that acid deposition could kill fish, it could kill aquatic life. All right, in this figure, if a body of water, see, snails need a pH of 6. If it goes below 6, they're going to die. You'll see an area that does not have any snails. Clams, bass is a type of fish, crayfish. So these are their thresholds. If you start seeing frogs dying, you know you have an issue. Okay? All right. If the pH or a power plant that is not even close to a lake, okay, could actually kill all those animals in the lake because the gases downwind could come down as acid deposition, and it could change the pH from, let's say, if the lake was at a 6.5, everybody was living, everybody was happy, but then slowly the lake becomes more acidic as more acid deposition occurs, and finally it gets to a threshold where there's not going to be any living things in that body of water. Okay? This is called the acidification of lakes. And there's threshold of animals that could potentially live there. All right? This will be our last slide for today, so please perk up if you haven't been paying attention. I know I've been long-winded today, and I apologize for that. Okay? But this is all good stuff. All right? Now, not only can acid deposition affect lakes are freshwater. They're smaller in concentration. They could also kill trees. If you kill trees, oh my gosh, you're killing plants. You're eliminating your food source. You're eliminating resources for organisms. So you're affecting biodiversity. You are basically destroying everything. Now, how does this acid deposition do that? So once again, acid formation is going below 7, under 5.6. That's the danger zone. Okay. That's when it's acid rain. Now, when acid rain goes on trees, you actually, look, this is an example of red spruce and sugar maple. They have a decreased cold tolerance. This is what these trees have evolved for, to be cold resistant. So it makes them, all right, weaker, and they cannot live throughout the cold. All right. And the reason being is that calcium leached from the needles and membrane. So what does that mean? So think about this. So we have the acid deposition coming down, and it's in the soil. When it's in the soil, it's going to allow aluminum that's regular in the soil that typically does not necessarily travel. It becomes more mobile, and now the trees are going to suck it up. So trees get so much aluminum. All right, that's not good for the tree. It's toxic for the tree. It makes them weaker. In addition to that, it makes the calcium and magnesium more mobile in the soil as well. Now, if the calcium and magnesium, in this diagram, it's showing how it's going off as runoff, it's going into the lakes and streams instead of going up into the tree. That's what leach means. It means like to get pulled away. So if the calcium and magnesium is being washed away into a body of water, now the tree's not getting it. So this is what the tree's getting. The tree's getting aluminum, which is a toxin, and it's not getting calcium and magnesium, which are the nutrients that it needs to survive. So therefore, the tree is losing all the way. And what it looks like is it basically starts to lose its leaves, and the pine needles get very, very skinny, and the top of the tree can pretty much die. All right. So if this occurs, then we can have no apple trees, no apples, no apple pie, no apple donuts. Okay. Think of all the different types of trees. All right. So this is something that needs to be taken care of, and it could be reduced by getting rid of the sulfurs that are in diesel and coal. Like I showed you a picture the other day on Remind at the Sheets gas station, where they're using low sulfur diesel fuel, or we could have clean coal technologies use wet scrubbers to get rid of that sulfur. All right. I hope you understood what I was trying to convey. You were an unbelievable class, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.